What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Story Time with DJ. This is episode number 5. Can't believe that we're already at episode 5. I believe it's episode 5. We're going to go with that. It's episode 5. But today's episode, today's story is such a profound episode about just reframing and getting a reframe in our minds. It was really impactful when it happened. Like many of my stories, it happened in the past week, probably week and a half. I think it was last Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. But it was just so powerful, and I've told 3 or 4. I think I've told 5 people now, and each and every one of them had a similar reaction to it. And I knew it was powerful when I experienced it. So, and that's one of the reasons why I've been sharing it so much. And I usually like to work these things out with people just to kind of see how it is when if people have the same experience that I had whenever I experienced it. So without further ado, I'll just go right into it. Like I said, this happened last week, and so a friend of mine, her name is Alicia, is a casting director. And I see that she has this message board up saying that she's in need of extras because she's casting for a film that's going to be shooting on a platform called PureFlix. And PureFlix is a streaming platform for faith-based films. And they need extras so they can kind of fill the scene up. Fill the scene up, because what's a scene without the background and the atmosphere? It's not as compelling, it's not as authentic that we're used to. Anyways, so she says that she's looking for extras, and I've been just in my mind. I've been saying I want to get back on set. I've been filming stuff, but I still want to get more involved on set, and I saw this as an opportunity to do that. Just a quick thing on reframing. I used to hate doing extra work. I used to hate it with all my being because I would always go, because sometimes it'd be very. It's a lot of hours, and this is how I used to look at it. It's a lot of hours. You don't really get much to it. You're just standing around. Like, what is the point? But I have since, I think it's been about a year, maybe a year and a half, that I've reframed what extra work is. And I view it now as not what can I get out of it, but what can I give? How can I be of value when I'm an extra? Like, who can I help, and also what can I learn? Because there's so many things going on set. If I'm not learning something while I'm there for 10, sometimes 11 hours, then that's on me. That has nothing to do with what's going on out there. If I'm on a set and there's nothing that I learn, then that's something that's going on right here. Because even if it's going deeper into something that I already know, I can always learn something. So that was one reframe that's been huge for me, but that's not the purpose of the story. That's just a hint of reframes. But so going back to the main point of the story is that I said, hey, I would love to come through. She said, are you sure? It's going to be 7 hours maybe. Are you sure you want to come? And I said, yeah, of course. I want to be a part of this. I want to learn. She said, okay, cool. So she sends me the information, and I already know how things work. When you're an extra, when you come in, they usually sit you in a room, and they try to keep you out of the way of the camera people because they have to set up and everything, because they don't want you in the way, because they have such a tight schedule that they're trying to stick to, and they have so many different moving parts that people being in the way can be very distracting. So I already knew that we were going to be in the room. We're going to be in a room together, and apparently there's going to be a ton of extras. So I get there early, and because, again, I know that I'm going to be sitting in a room for a little bit, I end up bringing my book bag full of stuff, like my journals and my books, just so I can plan my week. I say I'm going to make the most of this time that I'm not on set by planning my week, right? And so when I get there early. There's not a ton of people in the room, but I see there's about maybe 8 to 10 desks, not desk, but event style tables in the room. Those with the white tabletops and the middle legs really long, so it can fit a lot of people. and I see there's about 8 to 10 of these desks. So I'm assuming, I'm like, wow, there's gonna be a lot of extras here. But I picked the first table because there's no one there. I have a lot of stuff, so I choose to sit down there, and I spread my stuff out across the table. Kind of selfish in a way, but I say there's no one here. Might as well maximize my space, and I spread my stuff across the table, and I start planning my week. And I'm planning my week. I do this for about 5 minutes, maybe, and I notice that a young man walks in. A young looks like a young kid, right? And this kid, he's a handsome cat. That's the first thing I noticed about him first and foremost. I was like, yo, this kid is handsome. He walks in super like like he's tall. He looks like the old school version of Hollywood. How Hollywood used to how Hollywood used to define and picture the all American teen, all American kid. I mean, this guy he's tall. He's has blonde hair, blue eyes, has a chiseled jaw. So I'm like, yo, this is a handsome cat. So he comes in. I notice he comes in. I notice him, and I say, okay, well, I'll go back to my planning. And he's here early too. So as I'm planning, there's no one else in the room, but he chooses to sit right in front of me, right across from me. Again, there's all these tables around, but he chooses to sit right in front of me. So I'm like, wow, okay, I guess this guy wants to have a conversation. So I close my book and I start asking him questions. And the first question that you ask is, hey, what's your name? And he tells me his name, and I immediately, as we're having this dialogue, this exchange, I start to notice, because I'm looking at him, I start to notice that this kid's his face is twitching, like when he's talking to me, like he's having like little face spasms when he's talking to me. And another thing that I noticed is that his eyes, like, it looks like he's purposefully avoiding eye contact. And I'm looking at him, and I'm noticing this, and my mind automatically goes to like, oh well, I've been in enough acting classes to know that when young kids get into acting classes, sometimes they have a lot of nerves and they don't know how to deal with that energy, and sometimes how it manifests itself is with facial twitching. It's just what I've seen, so that's what I figured it was, right? But I also notice in the way that the way that he's talking is hitting my ear in a certain way. And me describing it's not going to do it justice. So as the story progresses, I'm going to do an imitation of it. And it's going to be an exaggerated imitation. So it's not exactly how he's talking, but it's kind of what I'm hearing, and I'm going to try to do my justice on it. So I ask him what is his name, and he says my name is Luke. I say, oh, hey, Luke, my name is DJ. And we just start talking, and I start to ask him. So I say, so what are some things that you like to do, Luke? And he says to me, he says, well, I'm really into acting and modeling. And I see him like light up when he says it. Like he lights up, so I can tell like he really means it. He's passionate about this. And anytime I see someone passionate about something, especially when it's acting, I love talking about acting, but I try not to talk about it on set just because it can get into like a bunch of ego stuff, and it's really not worth it. But when you see someone's genuinely passionate about it, then I have to dig. So I say, oh, you've been an actor, you like acting. And I said, well, it makes sense that you're a model because you're a good looking guy. And he got a good laugh out of that. And but I said, so you're an actor. You like acting. What's something that you've done for acting? And he starts to smile a little bit, and he says, well, I was just in the past season of Stranger Things. I say, wow, no kidding. And I wasn't even like as shocked, or like I wasn't even as blown away by the fact that he's on Stranger Things. I was more blown away at the fact of how happy it was when he said that. Like it really made him just light up inside when he said he was on Stranger Things last season, because he said it was his favorite show, and he just loved the experience, even though he was in the background. Like he loved the fact that he was in it. So he actually made positive light out of being a background actor because he's just so passionate about it, and that gave me a lot of just good feelings whenever I just loved it. And that's still not the point of the story. That's a different reframe in of itself. But this story has a lot of reframes in it. And so he tells me that he's on the last season of Stranger Things, and he said he was on the bleachers and all that. And again, he lights up when he says it. So I say, man, that's fantastic. Is what else have you done for acting? Is there anything else that you're doing to pursue this acting career that you want to do? And he says, well, he's looking up like he's searching for something to say, and I start to notice it's like I see that he has something, but it's like he doesn't want to experience it. I mean, tell it, and I'm like, that's that shyness that I was talking about. These kids don't want to talk too much because they're shy. So, but he says, well, I'm doing a short film, I'm creating my own short film. I said, shoot, you're creating your own short film, Luke? He said, yeah. I said, so what's it about? He said, well, it's autobiographical in a way. Yeah, it's autobiographical. I said, shucks. So you're doing a short film about yourself. What story are you telling about yourself? And I see him like he's like biting his lip, like he kind of wants to say it, but he's like stopping himself. He's like, well, and then I just see his like shoulders drop, and he's like, well, and he looks at me. He says, well, I was born with a disability, and it's about growing up and living with that disability. And as soon as he said it, I was like, in my mind, I was like, I knew there was something up. Like I knew it, but I didn't say it out loud. But I'm like, I knew there was something up, right? I could just tell. And because he opened the door, because he said it for himself and he put it out in the public. So I was like, I had to follow my curiosity and say, because I was genuinely interested. I said, so Luke, what disability do you have? And he goes into it. He says, well, and I don't remember exactly what it was called. He told me this like 2 or 3 times because I asked him after the fact, and I cannot remember it. But I remember how he described it, so I'll just describe it how he described it. He said, so I say, what disability do you have, Luke? And he says, well, I was born with a disability and the doctor said that I will never be able to, it's a muscle disability, and the doctor said that I will never be able to walk or talk, and that's what they told me growing up. And I ended up running cross country, and I was like, and when he said that, I was floored, right? Because I'm just staring at this guy, because when he walked in, I never would have ever assumed that he had a disability that affected his muscular, because he walked in all strong, confident, looking good, like I said. But he said he ran cross country, and then he continued on, and he said, yeah, so really what the short film is about is for people who have the same disability as me. I want them to know that they can do anything they put their mind to. And then he did something that I'll never forget. I'll never forget. He said, they said that I would never walk and I would never talk. And then he said, but I'm doing okay. And I just found myself just captivated by this guy. Cause it was just such a beautiful moment. And I never would have had this experience with him if I would have just stayed in my planning. I never would have known what this guy went through and what this guy's story was. And after I shook off being dumbfounded by this spectacular person, I said, so your doctor always said that you'll never walk, you'll never talk. Why didn't you believe him? What did your parents say? Did your parents believe him? And he said, no, my parents always told me that I can do whatever it is that I put my mind to. And again, I was just like, man, this guy is a winner. Like he has life figured out. There's nothing that can happen to this guy in life that he can't overcome and find some kind of magic in it because he's a winner up here. He took what his mom said, his mom and his dad said, and he ran with it. Like literally, he did cross country when he wasn't supposed to be walking or talking, and he did cross country. He ran with the fact that his mom said that his mom and his dad said that he can do whatever it was that he put his mind to, and it was such a beautiful thing, and that was just day one. So when day two came around, I I ended up coming back into the room and I see this lady. This lady's just she's super emotional, and she's like bawling, and you can see that she's like having this big smile on her face, but she also looks like she's almost in tears, and she's talking to the director of the film, and she's just saying how much she loves this guy. She loves this guy. She's talking about, and she ended up being talking about Luke. Not only was she talking about Luke, but it turns out that this was Luke's middle school drama teacher, and she hasn't seen Luke since he was in middle school, and she was just saying how much of a kind heart and a sweet soul he was, but also she was freaking out, and she's so happy because the last time she'd seen Luke was in middle school, when he was in middle school, and he used to walk around on crutches. He had to get around on crutches. So seeing him walk around like he doesn't like, clearly he didn't need him anymore, and just seeing him in that state, in this new representation of him, just freaked her out, and it brought her so much joy. And it was just such a touching and a loving moment, and I will never forget Luke. And by the way, Luke ended up being 24, so he wasn't even a kid. He was just a good looking guy who just looks young as hell. But he was just a fantastic person, and I ended up giving him my number because I told him whenever he finishes his short film, I would love to see it, because me and him, we bonded and we connected, and I just felt like he's such a good soul and such a good spirit myself, that I just had to stay in contact with him. But it just really, the biggest thing of the reframe that I keep coming back to, because this was about 3 reframes just in one day, but the biggest one was just, no, because how many times, it made me think, how many times have I told myself something, or I believed someone else that told me something that was limiting, that I allowed to stop me from what it was that I wanted to do. And if I just chose to believe something else and truly believed it, I'm 100% sure that the outcome would have been different. That I would have been more possible, more likely, more driven to actually go for it. And it was just a good reminder of that no one really can tell you what it is, that how you're going to live your life or what your life is going to be. I remember when I was in middle school, I used to get in trouble all the time. I was running with the wrong crowd, and just trying to fit in as a kid and trying to figure myself out. Like, people thought that I was going to be in jail, and they may have been right if I would have continued down that path. But there was a lot of people that gave up on me. A lot of teachers that just didn't want anything to do with me. They would just send me to the principal's office, and I'm sure that they had some things to say, like I'm not going to be much. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But if I would have listened to them, if I would have believed that and internalized that, then maybe I would have continued down that path. But the simple fact that we can change our own stories, we can interpret our own stories, and we can go in any direction that we want. It's just a huge reframe, and it was just such a captivating moment for me, and I'm just so eternally grateful that I talked to this 24-year-old guy named Luke, and man, it was just such an incredible experience. And that's the story, guys. That's the story. That's episode number 5. I honestly think this was the best episode yet. I hope you guys feel the same way, because I think that's more important. But I'm just loving so much these story times, because these are literally happening the week after I tell them. The week before I tell them, and it's just making me more present with people, more present to my surroundings, and more wanting to talk to different people because I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much, and it's just so magical. And I think I already have the episode, like the two next episodes. I think they've already happened. I have to test them out a little bit to see if it's something worth sharing or if it's just something that's just gonna stay for me. But I'm really looking forward to whatever episode is next. If you guys, as always, if you guys found this useful, if you didn't find this useful, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, please let me know. It'd be super helpful. And we'll see you next episode.